All right, so I'm gonna start. So we are the team from CU Boulder. We are a senior capstone group of environmental engineers. And so we've been working on this project since the beginning of January as a team. And so we did the University of Washington. And go ahead and go to the next slide. I'll introduce our team. So we all had different focus areas on the team of the part of the project that we were going to focus on. And we worked under the advisory of James Harper, who has a PhD and a PE in civil engineering. And he did some work in residential solar panels. So he was able to give us some guidance when we got stuck. And then my name is Gwendolyn King, and I focused on the financial analysis. I'll introduce Will. Will Lamons. He focused on the conceptual design and distribution impacts, so he'll probably talk about that. And then I'll pass it off to Sawyer.
I'm Sawyer. I worked on the conceptual design with Will and helped out on the financial analysis as well.
And I'm Sarah. I focused on the financial analysis.
I think it's switched to the next slide already, but my name is Hannah Dirks, and my area of expertise on the project was the development plan.
And so I'll start talking about, if you want to just keep it paused here for a second, that's totally fine. I'll talk about our system selection, looking at panels and inverters. We picked the Rec Alpha Pure RX panel with the 460 watt kind of setting on it, the 460 watt version, I should say. And we picked a bifacial panel just because it's so low light in Seattle. There's about 266 of days of overcast skies per year. So we wanted to pick a panel that was good for low light performance and try to maximize as much reflection as we can get with the albedo of the roofs and such. And the panel efficiency was 22.1%. And we paired these with the Enphase IQ7X microinverters. And we did this to try to optimize our system as best we could with the best AC to DC conversion ratio. And this was kind of a better way for us to look at our system as a whole and see if there are any issues with it. A lot easier for maintenance and oversight of the entire system to see the individual performance of the panels compared to a string inverter. And then we also picked it because of the warranty. We're looking at a 25-year period here, so 25-year warranty was what we wanted, and we're looking at about a 10-year labor warranty as well, which is really going to cut down on the costs for maintenance and such. And you can play the video. It should be going to the next slide here momentarily. Yes, maybe skip a couple seconds ahead.
Lose too much time on this.
Maybe I shouldn't have kept it paused.
There we go.
All right. So then looking at the building selection, this was the next thing that we kind of needed to pick. We were given a whole bunch of load data. And the big criteria was how much solar we could actually fit. We were mostly looking at roof systems here just because, again, trying to cut down on the costs. We didn't want to build too many carport structures and drive up construction and delay implementation of it as well. So that was a big part of it, was looking at the roofs and the roof warranty, the roof life. We ultimately ended up picking the 4 buildings with the youngest roofs to try to cut down on costs and have to avoid replacing the roof. And that also cut down on shading losses and things like that. You start putting these on the ground and you're going to lose a lot of your output to shading with the amount of trees and rain and such that they get in Seattle. And I will pass it off to Will on the next slide here to talk more about the system setup that we had.
How many scan ahead? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Hi, okay, so this is kind of going into more intricacies of the system design, we chose Burke Museum, Madrona Hall, Hans Rosling Center for Population and Health, and Bill and Melinda Gates Center for Computer Science and Engineering. This details the system size in kilowatts, as well as the number of panels, which correlates to the number of inverters, of course, and then our annual production in kilowatt hours and our energy offset. We placed our panels with 85% minimum solar access to reduce on the cost input and related to the power output. We're trying to really maximize our return on here without adding a lot of additional panels. We did a 3-foot setback since that's kind of the minimum. And then we did a 6-foot row spacing just to ensure there was no shading from neighboring panels. Yeah, this combined with the microinverters and the low irradiance panels will attempt to maximize our outputs in comparison to the upfront costs that'll be associated with these designs. The microinverters themselves will increase the efficiency of our system, our performance by 1.5 to 3% as well. So that's part of why we selected those. But yeah, this is just one of the irradiance maps and or sort of models in Aurora Solar. Yeah, we can probably go to the next slide now.
I can get you there. There you go.
Thank you. So this is our comparison between the production and consumption. Overall, it isn't a huge offset, but that's with consideration of the climate patterns in Seattle, as well as the space we were allocated. Overall, we're doing 7 to 13%. So this will contribute to their ultimate goal in their master plan to offset greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. In addition to the solar they already have implemented, as well as their hydropower, this should help them make strides towards that goal in the future. And then we also, of course, did our distribution impacts, which will be detailed more on the next slide as well. But overall, we determined that our system size will not affect the system or the overall grid. We did our power factor of 0.85 based on the microinverter specifications. And then I did multiple calculations, one where we used kilowatt sizing for the system, and then divided that by the power factor to get our apparent power. And then compared that to the host capacity. Also, the power output of the microinverters is 320 volt amperes. So we did that times the number of panels divided by the power factor to get another apparent power. And that just shows us that overall the consumption of the capacity of our transformers neighboring each of these buildings and the arrays is very minimal, 1% kind of average. So we don't anticipate substantial impacts on the grid. Even having considered the distance from the substation to particularly Burke Museum, overall we should be fine. Also considering that the likelihood is their transformers are 3-phase 4-wire 240 volt setup. So yeah. And we can go to the next slide.
Okay, so our development plan aligns very closely with the University of Washington's campus master plan. It considers things like zoning, regulations, codes, ordinances, and aesthetics. So some of these included height limits, applicable fire codes, and burning or building regulations for safety compliance. So as far as aesthetics go, since we didn't opt for any ground mounted panels, the main concerns were related to addressing light and glare. And we also made sure that we are contributing to the long-term goals outlined in their master plan related to growth and sustainability. Community engagement and equity were also really big priorities for the team. So those are sought through the Campus Master Plan's public participation program. Some benefits to the community include job creation, as well as economic development. So another part of the development plan was to create a timeline with time estimations for things like project approval, permitting, and construction. So this was determined to be a very long process spanning over 10 months with 15 tasks from system drafting to the final inspections. The last component of the development plan were the concerns of the project, which we determined to be limited to permitting, which is a very complex and time-consuming process. There also may be challenges with equipment down the line, despite, careful planning on the conceptual design side. There are no known concerns related to land use or social impact at this time. So the main concern is on the financial side, which will be further elaborated by Sarah on the next slide.
Great, thanks, Hannah. Yeah, I'll go into the financial analysis a little bit here. So as the University of Washington is a non-tax-paying entity, they can't really benefit from federal or state tax credits. Therefore, we decided that a power purchase agreement, or PPA, would be the best option to finance this project. So in this case, a third party will own the solar panels and benefit from those tax incentives, which will then lower the overall price of the PV system. And then from there, the third party will sell the energy back to the University of Washington at a discounted price. And so with the 4 buildings we chose, you can see here on our slide that we were not able to get a positive IRR. They were all pretty negative. And so from that, we kind of concluded that this project would not really be financially beneficial for the University of Washington, but we're really framing it in the way that the motivating factor for UW to implement this project is to show the public that they are a leader in clean energy initiatives. And the university has currently a budget of about $48.5 million to put towards their goal of reducing their carbon emissions. So overall, investing in this would just kind of send a very powerful message to the public that they are a leader in this global net zero carbon transition. Thank you guys. That's all we have for you today, and we'll be happy to answer any questions now.